Hey, Mona.
Jack, how are you, mate?
Good, mate. How are you?
Pretty good. Sorry, I couldn't find it. I'm thinking, where is that message? I looked on Messenger, I looked on Facebook, I looked on Instagram, and then I remembered it's LinkedIn. I got there, but then I haven't got LinkedIn on my computer. I've only got it on my phone, so I couldn't get you up. But anyway, here we are.
Here we are. How's the day been?
Pretty good, yeah. Had a bit of a rise, getting pretty hot. Where are you? Well, I'm in Ballarat.
Yeah, I was so I've been based down in Torquay for 12 years, but I just moved to Goldie up on the
right.
coast. So moved up here about 6 weeks ago. So living up here, and is it hot down there today? Is it?
It's going to be, yeah. It's now. What is it now? It's 26 now, and it's going to be 31, which is, well, we think that's hot for Ballarat, mate. Let me tell you.
Yeah, true.
As you know.
Yeah. Thanks for jumping on. Obviously,
no worries. Yeah. So what's this all about? Sorry,
easy.
I just so much on. You just let me know. I think I'm needs to know basis.
Yeah, easy. So Amino Extension is like a new running community. We're just going to be focusing on bringing informational events and just give value to runners and just try to help them grow as a runner. And so we're just having a few interviews for this running summit. Just jumping on, have a few interviews, and then hopefully some runners get some value from it, and then help me grow as a runner. So thanks for jumping on.
Right.
Appreciate it.
No worries. You had Benita. Did you last week?
Yeah, Benita. Yeah, a few days ago last week. There'll be a few people jump on. I think Troopy's came to have a chat soon. So
I sent him a video we did about 25 years ago or something, and he got a bit of a laugh out of that.
Oh, did he?
I don't reckon I haven't changed too much, but he's changed a fair bit.
What was the video?
He's pretty was it? We're just like a local TV station here in Ballarat that did, and they must be changing all their stuff over from beta to digital or something, and this bloke kept sending me all the stories that I'm in, and every second day I get a new one, and he had one. It was before my World Championships and before his City to Surf in 1997. So we both had good results, so it was good, but it was quite funny because he's pretty young and naive, be fair to say. Love out of it.
Oh, that's awesome.
But he loves a chat, so once you get him on, Jack, it'll be out of control, mate. And he just says, you know, he doesn't care who he upsets. He's got a unique. He's good. Obviously, we're good mates still, so it'd be great value for you.
Yeah,
so
awesome.
Looking forward to that one.
Yeah, no, that'd be good. Start things off. Do you want to just give a bit of an intro, but basically just the pathway into running when you were younger and how your story kind of began?
Sure. So Steve Moneghetti here. So I was a bit of a late starter to athletics, and I tell the story. I went to Little Athletics because I loved my sport when I was a kid. My dad took me along, and I wasn't that good at anything, and sort of that was when I was kind of young, so sort of 9 and 10, and then I didn't go back to athletics till my next door neighbour in Wendouree knocked on my door. He must have heard that I was running a bit at St Pat's, my secondary school, and invited me out to a cross-country race out at Lake Burrumbete, and out I went and played footy in the morning and went out there in the afternoon, had a run and loved it, and I've been running ever since. So that was 1976, and I kept running. I enjoyed that environment because up until then I'd played team sports, and I've always been a pretty determined and was determined as a young kid. So I was always, pretty keen to have a go. And if some other people weren't having a go, I'd feel a bit frustrated. So what I loved about running was that it was just me. And if I ran hard, I got the result that I deserved. And the other thing I remember is the environment out there, really social. Lots of people came up to talk to me and welcome me. We had afternoon tea, we had, tea and coffee and cakes and all that sort of stuff. So I just loved the environment. And it was that environment, not the fact that I was successful, that kept me going back. And, I still go to club races now, and I just love that environment. We've got the country titles here in Ballarat on the weekend. I'll go down and have a look at a couple of people I'm coaching and running. So just that, I love that athletics environment. And that's the thing that kept me in it. I wasn't that good as a kid at 14, 15, 16, but I was a bit of a late mature. I didn't sort of shoot up in size. Not that I'm big now, but I was a lot smaller then until I was about 18 or 19. And I just, that because of that late growth spurt, I then sort of got into senior athletics, and I didn't find the transition all that difficult, Jack. I enjoyed the longer distance. So I was kind of itching to get into senior ranks, because we went from sort of running 5K cross country races and 8K cross country road races and stuff up to sort of, 10 miles, as we used to say then, 16K, and the longer distance really suited me. So I was itching to get into senior athletics. So I didn't find that transition difficult at all. Started making some Victorian teams, Australian teams, and away I went. And the distance got longer, and I enjoyed that environment.
Awesome. When did you take that next step to the Victorian and Australian teams? How old were you then?
I did make a track team when I was 19. So I won the under 20 Australian under 20 cross country. I might have even been under 19 then, I think in Tassie in 1982. So I was then sensing that I had a bit of a future then, and I made an Australian team to run again. There was a international track meet in Korea. I actually went to Seoul would you believe, in 1982, ran a 5K on the track there against, they had a South Korean team, a New Zealand team, and us. So it was a tri-country meet, and I ran really well and won that, and came home. And who would have imagined that 8 years later or so, 6 years later, I'd be there for the Olympics. So I could never have believed that. So I kind of was starting to make Australian teams as a youngster, but I had a big setback. I'm a really good cross country runner. That's my strength, even though people think I'm a marathon runner, road runner. I'm cross country is where I grew up and my first love. And I went to the World Cross Country Trial in Sydney in 1983, and I missed that team, had a bad run there. And I remember sitting on the beach down at Bronte after the event. It was at Centennial Park in Sydney, really hot day. Remember going down to the beach afterwards and sitting on the sand with a guy called Rod O'Connor, and we were just chatting away, and he said, "Oh, you sound like you're a bit disillusioned with your coach. You might want to think about Chris Wardlaw, who's coaches me. He's a great fella." And right at the time, I was coached by Tony Benson, who was my teacher here in Ballarat, and he'd gone to the Philippines. And I just kind of lost a bit of that direct contact with him, and so I decided to change coaches, and that was the most significant thing in my life and the most positive thing, because he still coaches me now. Not that he doesn't set out anything, but he's my coach for life, and it's great when you can get a relationship like that. And that just then, I got a bit quicker on the track. He changed things up. I got a bit stronger, and so I went back onto the track, ran some good 5K, 10K, made the Commonwealth Games team a couple of years later, and sort of things took off. So I've always tried to surround myself with good people that I trust, physios, training partners, coaches, and that's worked out really well for me. And I haven't seen Rod O'Connor since. I don't think I hardly since, but I need to thank him, because he's the one that set it up. And without Chris Wardlaw, I certainly wouldn't have had the career that I had. Coach, most important that you have a good coach-athlete relationship, and that's been so significant for me.
Yeah. What was it that was so significant about your relationship, and how was that such a big impact in your career?
Interestingly, I was already starting to run sort of half marathons, and this was in 1980, just the end of 83, so leading into 1984, and I was already sort of going out and thinking about running marathons, and I would have. And he very quickly said, "Look, you'll end up," I was running sort of 30 minutes for 10K, just over 14 for 5K. And he said, "Look, you're going to be a 2:15 marathon runner off that. But, I want you to be a 2:10 marathon runner. So we need to get you faster on the track." So he changed my thoughts back onto, and I hate running on the track.
Yeah.
Sorry, hate's a strong word, but it's pretty close to hating it. So, and I've never been fast, so I used to just get smashed on the track. So guys I would beat across country and on the road would beat me on the track because I'd always get, out kick because I've got no kick and I'm slow. So I wasn't really all that keen on getting on the track, but he convinced me that getting faster on the track, then I would have a bigger differential. So he knew, and we all knew I was going to be a half marathon runner, but just having that bigger differential was so crucial to me. So I got on the track and, I went to, I ended up running 13:25, so 8 minutes for 3K, 13:25 for 5K, 27:47 for 10K. And that set me up then to be a good half marathon run, absolutely, no doubt. And so, and just the framework of training, and you won't believe this, but yeah, I'm sure you'll get on to training and all that sort of stuff, but I did the same training, long run Sunday, mid-week longish run on a Wednesday. I did sessions Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday, and it was Tuesday my fartlek, Thursday the 8/400s on the track, deek session, and Saturday had my hill course. And I do that every week. And I remember talking to Julian Spence, Moose, who people will know out there from the Inside Running podcast. And Moose said, so when you didn't do fartlek on a Tuesday night, what did you do? Anyway, I thought, that's a good question. What did I do? And after about a minute of thinking, said, actually, the only other thing I did was before a race, I do half fartlek, a 13-minute fartlek. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, that was otherwise I just locked it in, Jack. That was what I did. And you can look at my diaries. I've got diaries from early 80s right through until 2000.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I did. The only time I changed it up was if I had a race coming up that I needed to either freshen up for or do a bit of different training. I did a couple of little different track sessions, but otherwise it was just lock it in, 180 to 200K weeks, just tick them off and survive, get strong. And I got so strong that when I went into a race, I was just bulletproof and I just felt like I was unbeatable. And gee, it's such a powerful feeling when you've just got such a big block of training. Yeah. And you get on the start line and everyone said, I was so consistent. How were you? You were never injured. Your race results were consistent. You know what? It's got nothing to do with racing. It's all about the blocks of training that you get in beforehand. And like I say to people, and I'll tell you, Jack, if you run twice a day, you run 180K, you do a few sessions at faster than your half marathon race pace, you do that for 10 years, you'll be a very, very, very good distance runner.
Yeah, yeah.
Easy to say, a lot harder to do. That's the secret.
Yeah.
That's it.
As the Monophthong the favourite?
Yeah, it's Monophthong. Obviously, I didn't understand what it sort of turned out to be. And that's the great story. You probably everyone's heard it, I'm sure. Yeah. But when Chris, he's in Melbourne, I'm in Ballarat, so we agreed that he would take over my coaching, and he said, on a Tuesday night. So I'm talking to him on the phone from the house at 1 Alexander Avenue, Wendouree, and I'm on the phone, and Dad and Chris says, I do fartlek on Tuesday night. And I said, you fartlek? Well, what do you mean? Because Chris is kind of a bit, he's a bit more flexible and relaxed than me, and I'm meticulous. I like the training locked in. So I said, 20 minutes of just, something. And I'm kind of, we started talking about other stuff, and I sort of started writing, just jotting some stuff down. He said, some minutes and stuff. And I said, okay. And after about sort of 5 minutes of just sort of writing stuff down, I said, well, what about I do 2 by 90 seconds or a minute and a half, and 4 by a minute, 4 by 30 seconds and 4 by 15. He said, does that add up to 20 minutes? And I said, well, if you do the same recovery, that is 20 minutes. And he said, well, that'll do. So that's what we did. And that's how we came upon the I don't call it Monophthong. I just call it my fartlek. It's my name, but so I feel a bit funny. I just call it normal fartlek. And I actually, I've had a few calf issues, but I'm back doing a bit of running. And on Tuesday night, I sat at the boat sheds, and I did 13-minute fart. I call it half fartlek. It's actually 13 minutes.
Yeah.
It's still the 290s and it's half of everything else. So 2 minutes, 2:30s and 2:15s. And I sat there and I said, gee, just appreciate that here I am back doing a session. I didn't know if my body had allowed me to get back doing a session. So, sometimes you just got to take a moment to appreciate. And I was thinking back to how many times I'd been at this spot on the lake and just knocked that fartlek off, and how it set up the career that I had. So, and apparently I never knew this, Jack, but apparently about sort of 10 years later after I'd been doing it, Ken Hall was interested in just finding out what that session did. So I wore a heart rate monitor. I'd never done that before. And I wore a heart rate monitor and sent the results to him. And he said, it's almost the perfect session because apparently, my I don't know, anaerobic threshold, whatever this, I've got no idea on sports science, but apparently my anaerobic threshold was about 183 or something. And when I did the first rep, so the first 90 seconds, my heart rate went to just over 183, so probably 185. And then I sort of recovered. And, we roll the recovery, so we keep going pretty quickly. So it sort of was a sawtooth for the first couple of reps. But then it basically was a sine curve. It just ran straight along my anaerobic threshold, just over in the reps and just under in the recoveries. And apparently that is the perfect training session. And it pushes your anaerobic threshold up by doing that type of training. And basically, I didn't know it, but accidentally we were doing the perfect training. And basically I did that on a Tuesday. And then the Thursday track session, we were rolling sort of 64-second 400s and 38 to 40-second recoveries, which is pretty quick. And then Saturday, same thing. I'd roll the hill course. I was a bit slower, but I was still working my heart rate and my body pretty hard over that course, and just locked it in. The rest of it was just, doing enough training, enough volume to be tired, and that just made me super strong.
Yep. No, that's awesome.
Long answer to a short question.
No, I'm sure viewers will love it. Another question I had was, what's the highlight of your career?
So actually, Jack, the highlight for me, interestingly, is the consistency of my career. So I kind of look at my ability, my first marathon was a bronze medal at the Commonwealth Games. And then I basically stayed at world-class level right through until Sydney when I retired. I still finished 10th in the marathon there. So I think the highlight is that the fact that I had such a long career and could get to the start line in good shape. And most of the time, there was a couple of races, one particularly Barcelona in 1992 that didn't go well, but the rest of my marathon career, was really consistent. So, and probably the personal highlight, I think, would be the Athens World Championships in 1997, where I'd been running at a high level for a very long time. I was running it was really hot and humid. People said I couldn't run well in the hot weather. I'd been around for a long time. I was 35 years old, so I was kind of at the end of my career, and everyone had written me off. And for me to be able to run through the field and end up winning a bronze medal at that World Championships, which for me, it's the highest. I did win a silver at the World Half, but at a championship level, it's like an Olympic bronze medal for me. So that's the one I cherish the most. And for us, we started at the Town Marathon. We ran the sort of old course, and we went past the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier to add the mile on from the 1896 distance that they had. And then we finished in the old stadium. And I remember coming down into the old stadium, and we ran straight in, and it's kind of got really straight, long bends and long straights and tight bends, and ran down into there. And it was just a fantastic way for me to finish. I felt like I was at the home of marathon running. So it was a great result. And I was only, a minute behind a couple of Spaniards who, Abel Anton and Martin Fizz, were first and second. So that's probably the personal memory. And for me, there's a couple of photos that I've got that I treasure, holding the Australian flag and being able to be on the dais that day, I think was probably having overcome a couple of tough things as well, the hot weather, the age and all that sort of stuff. I silenced a few critics and just finally got that world medal that I'd craved over such a long time.
That's great. Congratulations.
Thanks.
From your experience throughout your whole career and to this day, what's one of the major things that a runner should focus on in order to grow and elevate themselves as a runner?
I think, interestingly, I'm doing a lot of coaching and advising and stuff now, and I think, a couple of things. I probably can't narrow it down to one, but they're kind of linked a little bit anyway, Jack. I think people are really controlled by technology now. So, and even I am, I'll run around out in front of on the nature strip to get 10K or whatever. If I'm 9.98, I can't stop. I've got to get the extra 20 meters, that sort of stuff. But I think one of the things that we need to remember is that you need to feel the run. And I got very good at just, I didn't wear my watch when I raced. I never raced with my watch on because it was a race. So I felt that I needed to run to the best of my ability. And had I been watching my watch all the time, I would have said, maybe at City to Surf, I would have said, oh gosh, gee, that's fast, that car, better slow down, I'm going to blow up here. But I just ran off feel. And for me, being out in front in a lot of the races by the end of my career, I was dominating. I was pushing myself. So I wasn't letting technology limit me. I knew I could read my body and I knew how to race well. And I would be running with other runners, Paddy Carroll and these guys that were in the fields around me and some of the international guys. And I would sense how they were feeling and when I'd push and I'd go hard in certain sections. So I think learning how that feel for running is something that people have lost a little bit now. So I think that's really important. And also similarly related to that, and I mentioned it earlier on, the consistency of training is what ultimately gives you distance running success. Now, I have a lot of people who'll jump on social media or they'll send me a note and go, wow, I had the best session ever tonight. You know what? I actually go, that's not such a good thing. Yeah. Because if you're having a great session, you probably didn't train hard enough the day before, or you're going to be tired tomorrow. So all I want is a great 3 months. I don't care. I'd rather you have average sessions and don't feel great in a lot of your running, but you do good mileage and you get your sessions done and you just tick them off. Yep. And you tell me I had the most consistent 3 months of my training career, and I'd go, that's a big tick for me. Yes. So don't tell me about the one fantastic session that you've done. Tell me about your ability to train over a consistent period of time. And that's, I think, the most important thing. And people love that instant gratification now, Jack. That young generation that you're a part of. And a few people out there are a part of, I'm sure. Yeah. But distance running is all about consistency. You talk about not being injured, just getting it done. And Troopy and I, Lee Troop, who's my best mate and was my best training partner here in Ballarat over a number of years, we used to say if we got 2 good sessions out a week, yep, that was as good a week as you can get. So we never expected to get 3 good sessions because that's impossible. You're just smashing yourself if you're doing it, and it's not the purpose of the training block that we were doing.
Yep. That's awesome.
There's a couple of little tips I think to just round people out. And I'm a pretty practical, down-to-earth person and pretty normal person. I think that normality is sometimes forgotten and it's simplified. And people go, well, that seems so simple, and you're a simple person. Exactly. You don't need to be clever. You don't need to be talented. You need to just have a good, strong work ethic, and that's what distance running success is.
Yeah, thanks for that. I'm sure a lot of viewers will kind of resonate with that, especially with the digital world and the probably pushing themselves too hard. Like you said, just need that consistency. So I appreciate that. With another thing that I wanted to ask you was, what was the reasoning behind your love for running? Like, what was it that drove you to run 180, 200K a week? And what was it that kept that consistency going?
Well, I always, I kind of dreamt as a kid of representing my country. So nothing made me prouder than wearing the green and gold and having that Australian emblem on my singlet. So, and if you look across my career, I mean, I ran, 6 world championships, I think, 10 world cross countries, 4 Commonwealth Games, 4 Olympic Games. So a lot of my career was focused on major championships. And I just wanted to challenge myself and represent my country. There is no greater thing than representing your country. And I love doing that. So that drove me. Initially, I wanted to become an Olympian, to be honest. So that first time that I remember getting the letter from the Australian Olympic Committee saying, congratulations, you've been selected to represent the country at the Olympic Games in Seoul in 1988. And that was just the greatest. That letter was almost better than going. I know it sounds strange, but it was kind of the culmination. I'd kind of done all this training and set all this stuff up in my life, and I got that letter, and it was sort of, you do your training and you don't really get a lot of a practical outcome for your training. That's why I think people like race certificates and medals. That letter to me was the sort of recognition and the outcome of many years of training to get to that point. So, that letter meant a lot to me. And so that's what drove me to become an Olympian. And then once I'd been and got there, and I wanted to go to Commonwealth Games, I wanted to go to World Championships and keep testing myself against the best in the world. And I'd got to the stage here where, I was probably clearly the number one distance runner in Australia. And I'd come off the back of Rob de Castella dominating Australian distance running, and then I became the next person. And so for me, the challenge was to just push myself here, but then test myself internationally against the best in the world. And I love doing that. And I would rather, when we spoke about the highlight of my career, I won obviously many races around the world, but the highlight of my career is where I finished third, because I felt that was the perfect race. And to me, it wasn't winning, because sometimes when you win, it's not the perfect race because you're not really drawing the best out of yourself. But on that day, that was the best I could do. And I love that personal challenge. I love looking down at the crest on my singlet and know that I'm doing the best I can for my country, but then also personally just pushing myself. So I had that drive, and the consistency of my training was all set up. I didn't find it boring, Jack, because doing the same thing every week, I knew I could just, it was credit in the bank that I was getting, so that when I was on the start line for that next major championship, I gave my best opportunity, had my best chance to run a good race and do the best I could. So that's how it all sort of rolled out for me. And I was always 6 months or 4 or 5 months from a major race. It was either a city marathon or a championship event, and that just was a drive enough for me to keep me going for over, for a very long time, 15 years. Even when I retired, I went to World Cross Country in, I don't know when it was, 2003 or 4 or something, in retirement, just to push myself and see if I could just do that at, I think I was over 40 at the time, and still ran pretty well.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Really appreciate your input. That's pretty much all I had for today. Really appreciate everything that you've said and the value that you've given. Congratulations on a brilliant career once again. And yeah, I'm sure the viewers will get a lot out of it and help them grow as a runner themselves. So before we wrap up, is there any other tips that you want to throw in, or we're all pretty much covered?
I think, I've been very fortunate, and, I say I was fortunate to have a lot of the opportunities, and I do think I was born to run, but I didn't recognise that until I'd become successful and but I look back now, and it was just, I love the feeling of getting out in the forest and running just for the pure enjoyment of the sport. And I'd like to think that, out there, if there's something that you're passionate about, this is not just in running, but generally, obviously, people who are listening will be runners or people who love their running. You've got to enjoy it, because it can be hard, and marathon running and the training you do is difficult, but the passion and the enjoyment I got out of it, the friendships I've been able to make, and the memories and experiences that I had far outweigh the success. And most of the stuff that I talk about, I caught up, a mate was in Ballarat, Julian Painter was here the other night. Those friendships you make in sport are friendships for life. Troopy's in Boulder in Colorado, yet when we talk to each other, it's like he was, it's like yesterday we're training together. So the friendships and the experiences that you have far outweigh the medals and the physical successes you get. So just remember to enjoy your running, appreciate the friendships and the people that you're training with and bumping into regularly, because that's the thing that I value so much for my time in the sport. And that's why I continue to stay involved at the level that I do, Jack.
Brilliant. Awesome. Thanks for your time, Mon. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure everyone else will as well. So take care.
No worries. Good to chat with you. Good luck with it all. Thanks. Cheers, everyone. See you on a run soon.
Absolutely. Talk soon, mate.
Cheers.